Welcome to the Cyber Agony Aunt podcast series, brought to you by your very own cyber aunties, me, Amelia Hewitt.
And me, Rebecca Taylor. We're here to tackle the most pressing questions that arise throughout your cyber career with a selection of very special guests.
Think of us as your very own mentors, confidants, and cheerleaders, your agony aunts for surviving your career. Hello, and welcome back to the Cyber Agony Aunt podcast.
God, we're back again. Time flies, eh? Time flies.
Doesn't it just?
So, for this episode, we have invited a fabulously creative content writer, an expert in all things socials, an individual who truly knows the importance of getting the message across in the most impactful way. Lovely guest, please introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys.
All right.
That's a great introduction, yeah. I'm Freya. I'm currently social specialist at a marketing agency. I've been doing this kind of thing for about 6 years, but I'm also a self-professed words nerd, someone who's been, a big reader my whole life and someone who really cares about tone of voice, words, communication and that kind of thing. I use it in my everyday work. Outside of that, I am a DJ. I always have to mention that one because it's just so...
Very cool.
No.
I am not that cool.
It always makes me laugh, though. Something I've observed from doing this for 3 series is we do these introductions on people and they don't know we're going to do it. And so when we go introduce yourself, they've just had all of this barrage of compliments about them and they all go, oh, okay.
I don't know who I am.
It's really lovely. Before we dive into all things content, we'd love to start, Freya, by asking you where your passion, because it certainly is a passion, for voice and how it's used in storytelling first began.
Well, I mean, as I said, I was always a big reader, and not just that, but encouraged to like every kind of thing. So whether that was going to a play or a ballet or, watching a film, classic. I mean, one of my favourite memories is my mum sitting me down and saying, right, The Breakfast Club, my favourite film, let's watch it and talk about why. So, I've always kind of loved consuming entertainment, other people's art, that kind of thing. I think one place where my mind was opened to this thing about voice and communication was there was a class when I was in sixth form. A really brilliant teacher called Miss Sunshine Harris. I have to shout her out. She's absolutely awesome. And it was about critical theory. And we looked at where the wild things are and read it through all these different lenses, deconstructualism, post-colonialism, all these different things. And it's a children's book, right? You're sitting there, you're 17, you think, why are we reading a children's book? We looked at how the images changed, different characterizations. It really opened my eyes to all the different ways you can read something very simple. And then when I went on to uni, and whilst I was at uni, I was also doing marketing, I kind of saw how that theory applies in our real world life, really. And you start thinking about things like another theory class I was in, and our teacher just said, when I say tree, you all imagine a different tree. You might imagine an oak tree or the willow tree or the tree at the end of your garden when you're a kid. And that kind of just demonstrates that how one word can mean something different to everyone. And that goes for every word. And then that starts to feel quite scary.
Yeah, interpretation and perception,
100%.
And so I think in marketing, it's all about, kind of bringing it back to the professional, it's all about thinking about how your audience might receive or associate with words. I think all of the best marketing uses the right word for the right person. So what I think's the best might be different to what anyone else thinks the best because it impacts you because you interpret it in a way that makes a good connection with brand. But yeah, I'd say those conversations around novels, which I love, really started that. I was also a history nerd, so that question of wow, that book from 200 years ago, what are they trying to say about their time and their life? I found that quite interesting too, so it comes from that place as well. Really?
I love that part of your mind. I love the way that you're thinking beyond just the words and you're thinking about the perception and the interpretation. I suppose before we dig into the questions. What is your favourite book, just out of intrigue?
Oh, it's such a difficult question. I think I've got a few that I really love. The Colour Purple by Alice Walker is one of my absolute all-time favourites. It makes me cry every time. It's on topic, I suppose, or popular at the moment. I'm a lover of Wuthering Heights as well. I think that's a brilliant book. I wasn't a fan of the film, but we can get into that another time. And modern, I really like The Kites by Romain Gary. It's this French novel about a guy who comes back from war, falls in love, and it's a big romantic modern novel, really. I love it. I'd massively recommend it.
Oh,
amazing.
Thank you for sharing that.
I think you found a kindred spirit.
Yeah, I've really connected.
Rebecca in her English graduate of self. Incredible. So moving on then, I guess, into the topic at hand, which, telling the story online in a Marketeer's way, is when we think about socials in particular, and we use that because that seems to be the one that everyone is aware of, are there anything or any key things really that we should be considering when creating content for both ourselves and our companies? And I guess the follow-up to that is, how have you seen it done really well? And actually what I'm interested to know is, how have you seen it go really wrong?
Yeah, well, it's a big question, and the what to consider question just feels massive. What are you trying to achieve, or what can socials do for your brand is that big question. I think if you're a B2B brand or a tech or cyber brand, your home's going to be LinkedIn primarily. Especially if your audience is other businesses. If your audience is customers, you get to have a lot more fun in a lot of ways. But I think for B2B, it's all about finding your voice. And I think this is what people sometimes get wrong. They try and go for a really corporate voice or a bit too fun. And in B2B, you've got to sit somewhere in the middle. I think I've always thought that the best way to do that is to think about how you actually talk to your customers and really try and replicate that. And I think the most important way to get around that is thinking, what is the knowledge level of your customers? What do they need explained? What do they already know? Because you don't want to make someone feel stupid, and you don't want to make them feel stupid because they do or don't know something.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's the thing. So what platforms are for you is a number one question. Where your audience are, because if you're a B2B brand but you're looking for young founders like yourself, you might find someone on Instagram more likely than LinkedIn. And if you have a brand who understands your day-to-day life. So for me, one that does that really well is Surreal on LinkedIn. They're a cereal brand. They do these really fun slideshows. Yeah. And I've gone back and forth on them though, because I think, okay, how are you reaching your audience? How is posting these things on LinkedIn making me buy cereal in the supermarket? Mm-hmm. But I think two things. Those carousels are very well branded. They're always in the brand colours and they've always got the logo, which means I now recognise it when I go into the supermarket and I'm like, oh, that's Surreal. They do the reels. I also think that they're relating themselves to the right time of day, that morning routine, that pre-work routine.
Yeah.
A brand that gets the struggle half an hour later when you're sitting on your morning call and you're thinking it's quite useless is quite a valuable connection to make as a cereal brand. So I've gone back and forth on them, but I've ultimately come round to, well, yeah, it worked for brand awareness and recognition for me. I think it works really well. Another one outside of the B2B space is Red Bull. I know they've been going a long time, but that Red Bull gives you wings. It's that consistency is key thing, right?
Yeah.
They've always done that. And I think their sponsorships for extreme athletes live that motto out in a really cool way. I just think, wow, they're actually giving people wings, literally.
Yeah,
and that's what that does. I recently saw they had a really brilliant YouTube documentary of an athlete that they supported hiking up Everest and then skiing down it without oxygen. It was crazy. And it's a 20-minute video on YouTube. I absolutely recommend you go see it. It's produced like a documentary. It's beautiful. And me and my friend were just sitting there going, oh, that's crazy. It's incredible. And at the end, obviously, he does it. He cracks a Red Bull can and takes a sip and you think, okay, yeah, now I'm going to the shop and getting some Red Bull. Yeah. That's brilliant. So I really like how they live that out with all of their sponsorships. I think it's really cool. Another one that is great at the moment, I think, is Claude. I think their response to ChatGPT ads getting released with their set of 4 ads was absolutely brilliant. I think what's so brilliant about those Claude ads is that they tap into what people are already kind of wary of with AI, like with those chat GPT typical responses. I was talking about this with my girlfriend, and I said to her, like, I wonder if they actually use ChatGPT to generate the scripts for this, because they are so correct on the exact words and intonation they use.
Yeah.
It's like absolutely perfect. And with that interruptive ad, it's like imagining what that could feel like for consumers and how invasive that could feel. I mean, I was already a fan of Claude over ChatGPT because of the way that it writes. But I do think that I think those ads were really good and right on the pulse of feeling. Now, I do want to shout out one marketing agency for their work on LinkedIn as well. They do a podcast. They're called House of Performance, and I actually applied unsuccessfully for a job with them based off of
They'll hear
based off
this
of their
and go,
podcast.
we made a mistake.
We made a
Well,
terrible
maybe,
mistake.
possibly. But I mean, look, I don't know if it was the best fitting role, to be honest with you. But they were really lovely people, and I actually applied because I'd followed them for a while because they created absolutely brilliant marketing content. And the target audience was in some ways right. At the time, I was working somewhere that did work with agencies. So to hit on someone in the marketing team who could potentially then refer up the chain was the right kind of targeting for them. And they just had really great content. They'd talk about client stories anonymously. They'd talk about the biggest mistakes they see. It was a great example of using what they experience every day in their business to create content. And that is the drum I will be hammering this entire podcast, because they were just using what they know.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, circling back to the question, what I would say, you have to always use what you know. You know your product inside out, or you know who you're selling to inside out because you talk to them day in, day out. And I think the best way to create content is to spend some time with yourself and go, okay, what do those people care about? What's the question I get asked most? You know, those things. That's the way into content that's relevant. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's an incredible answer, and I agree with the examples you've given of fantastic. The one that I've seen a lot of recently, which is quite entertaining because it's making quite a bland concept really interesting, is the Quaker Oats marketing around the Winter Olympics. It's everywhere. It's like I do a lot of driving, so I listen to the radio a lot. I'm a big greatest hits fan, all right? But they're always talking about how they're powering Olympians, and they've got various celebrities to do like, you know, like an average person doing like an Olympic sport. But then it always starts with, I'm having my Quaker Oats. And it's really funny because it's a brand that I've always known, but, you know, I'd never thought anything of until now. And so I like that resurgence of brands via marketing. And I think the interesting thing I find is like I was trying to think of a really non-cringe way of saying, but like a founder in cybersecurity is marketing is really tricky, because there is always that balance of, well, I'm a subject matter expert and I'm trying to communicate with often decision makers are other subject matter experts, but there's a very fine line in terms of accessibility of content, I feel, and also trying to make something that's really quite boring sound. Compliance is not interesting. No matter how you dress it up, it's not interesting. So I think the balance that I've always come to with the content is, what would I like to see? Like, as someone in my industry, well, I'd like to be kept abreast of various news or decisions around data protection. And so I have built a lot of I always joke that I'm Principal Defence's head of marketing, which is an insult to the marketing profession. But I kind of have taken that approach, because ultimately you are your customer in a way. Like, if we're looking to work with other companies or to get services from other companies, I'm the customer. And so it's no different being on the other side of the table in terms of what people want.
Yeah. I think what you've both said has been actually magic and is incredibly relatable. I think if I think about, I don't get to watch a lot of what I'll call normal television, having got two small people. And the only advert that really sticks out to me, I don't know if you've seen it, is the Soreen advert. You know, the little...
Soreen?
You know, is it Serene? Soreen?
Why did you say it like that?
That's just how I've always...
Soreen.
The little loaf things.
Yeah, malt
because they've
loaf.
got a little jingle. And so my kids keep singing it. And it means that they now eat it. So that for me is a win, because it's connected to them. And they've been like, oh, I should eat
that's a
that,
good
because they
jingle,
look happy.
Do you know what?
Little
I
loaves are
can't
happy.
stop singing the
Go on.
Pepto-Bismol advert. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's so bad. They've got like a song about heartburn and indigestion. And in my head, terrible. I mean, I think they've...
But then when you next have heartburn,
well,
you know who you're going to pick up.
I think they must have had some big release into the UK, because it's a US company, like maybe last year into the UK, because there's so much marketing around it, and it's, you know, it's fantastic. But jingles
go a
aside.
long way. But when I relate, Freya, to what you said, obviously you've spoken a bit there about businesses, and obviously I work for an organisation, but a lot particularly over the past 18 months, I've tried to work a lot on my own profile and presence. And again, a lot of what you said relates exactly to that, about the consistency, about my tone of voice, sticking not to my lane, because that sounds negative, but knowing what I'm happy to talk about, what my areas of expertise are, and sticking to that, rather than being maybe someone that's like, yeah, of course, I can totally talk about quantum. Give me an hour because I need to research thoroughly, because I know absolutely nothing. But I found my space, and that now is serving me well. So I think everything you said was brilliant.
Well, I think that's it. Like, you got to find your niche and push that, because ultimately that's what you're good at and that's what you know about. I think, you know, research is good. When you guys asked me to be on this podcast, I was a little worried. I thought,
Safe
I don't know
know
why.
anything about cyber,
it's not a professional outlet. I wouldn't worry.
I was like, wow, I'm going to have to do some reading about cybersecurity and stuff like that. But no, I'm glad that we're talking about something in my wheelhouse today. But yeah, I think that's true. And I think it's interesting because it's different. If you're in a big organisation, really you need to silo and use your experts to tell your brand story, which is, for most companies, we're the expert at doing this. And if you're in a smaller company, then you can drive some of that through your brand page. But I think it's always good, especially on LinkedIn, to build up your personal pages, because LinkedIn prefers them much more than company pages. I mean, how many times do you see someone you follow versus the company that they work for that you also follow?
Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
Big one. And that's, you know, I think we did an episode on personal brand, I think about a year ago when we started the podcast. And it's fascinating to see, and also my experience, how your personal brand ties into your company brand, because you know, people want to work with people. Shocking fact around sales. I'm really bringing the insights today. But often, you know, I when I think of consultancies, I often think of the people in there that I like and I know, and I want to work with this person because I think she's great. Not necessarily I want to work with them as a brand, but I like what that person stands for and what she's doing, etc., etc. So
that's very true. I think whenever you're going to work with an organisation, you start to have a look at who the folk are that are there first.
Absolutely.
Moving into the next question then, and we've actually had this coming from a lovely listener.
Awesome.
So, how do I build, Freya, sustained engagement with my content and even get people to share what I have posted? I'd love my blogs to go viral.
This is a great one, and it's such a difficult one to answer, but it is great. It's the question on everyone's lips, always. And I'd say it depends on platform, but always the key is consistency, you know, and I think that goes in a few directions. No, you don't have to post every day or post a blog every day. But if you post 2 blogs a month, you should consistently follow up and sharing it on LinkedIn and sharing quotes from it and sharing insights and making carousels and kind of slicing and dicing it, sharing it up in a lot of different ways. If you have written a blog you think is very good, that's getting some traction, why not sit down and record it and put it on YouTube, even if your face isn't there and you just use a visual? Why don't you just read through it, a 5-minute thing, and turn it into a video, you know?
I hadn't thought about that.
I'm like thinking in my mind, I should be writing this down.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good thing. I think if you're struggling to get traction, I have like maybe 5 things I'd go through. You'd check your relevancy, so make sure your topic is relevant to the people that follow you, or the people you're sharing it with. I'd say, you're promoting it mercilessly in those ways that I kind of listed. I'd also say no gated content. This has kind of changed in the last year or so, but I think people have started, you know, when they write their big guides or whatever, taking the email requirement off of them because of privacy concerns, but also why would you stop people reading the content that's really going to convince them to reach out to you? You know, the place to do the sell is at the end of that content. Why would you try and sell before that, you know?
Yeah, until they know what they've got.
Right, so show them exactly what they can get. Give them the information about how good you are and put very clear contact information at the bottom and hope they click it. Is a better way. I think also, as I say, that soft sell expertise led will make your content work better for you. So if you're writing a blog, make sure that you're mentioning that it's your expertise in a very on the down low way.
Yeah.
And again, in the case of blogs, linking to other pages on your website's a great one. Doing a quick check on Google Keyword Planner for SEO keywords is also a great one, because as much as people are talking about a swing towards search engine optimization, AI optimization for search, SEO is still the groundwork for that. AI still works off the back of search engines, among other things. And I think get on your target audience's level. As I was saying before, make sure you're speaking to them as they would speak to you. And if you're struggling for content, talk to your team or think about it yourself. If you're the one calling people, what questions do you get asked most commonly? Answer those. And then drill down on that and make a carousel about it, share it on LinkedIn, get other people in your company to share it. I think that's the one. I would say it's great to go viral, but going viral doesn't always... going viral doesn't mean that your target audience are reading it. And I suppose the thing is that 5 readers who are exactly who you want to reach is much better than 100 readers who just thought you wrote something funny. So I'd say, focus on showing up in a relevant way. Think about the fact that your content might be read in 5-10 years' time when someone's searching for that in the future and could be the start of a lead. I think that's really like the way to think about it. Another time-saving thing is to go back, look at old blogs and refresh them, especially in the tech space. That's a good one because information runs out of date so quickly.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's some of the ways that I would approach making the content. And the key is really to share.
Yeah. It is as simple as that. And I think that's as well where tagging the right kinds of people, the right kinds of organisations. I love a hashtag.
We had this conversation last night. I was sharing something and we were on the phone and Rebecca was like, where are your hashtags? And I was like, no, that's cringe. I don't want to do that. And she was like, put a hashtag on it.
Well, look, this is what I'll say. Hashtags on LinkedIn, I wouldn't really use more than 5. I think it looks a bit spammy otherwise. I'd usually go for 3. You can go for you can follow hashtags on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So
see, told you.
Well, people do. So if you hashtag something and someone follows that hashtag and you get a bit of traction, it's a way to break out of your own circle.
Yeah.
Which is an important one to do. And it's hard to do on LinkedIn. On Instagram, hashtags have become a lot less relevant, almost not at all. But the thing to remember about social platforms is they're searchable now. So when you Google something, you'll have started seeing Instagram or TikTok come up as a first or second result. So captioning, if you are turning your blog into a video, making sure the caption captures what a search might be for something like that is an important one too. But yeah, it's just about thinking around kind of how your customers will be looking for your content once you've written it and making sure that all your metadata and all that technical stuff is in line as well.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And the one thing in the longer term, I guess, that we have seen is beneficial in terms of what brings further opportunities, both when we're thinking about from our companies and ourselves, is like making sure that content is quite easy to find. So like, Rebecca, I know you really bang the drum for like making sure that you've linked to articles you've contributed to or written or blogs you've done in your LinkedIn profile. As an example, using LinkedIn because that's the social media that I use professionally.
Yep.
But interestingly, that has actually really worked for me because I've had people that have said, oh, well, I've seen you talk about this thing and you offer it at your company and can we have a chat about it? Even if I've shared it a year ago, people, I love a nose on people's profiles, but other people do too. Like they're willing to sit down and go through it and sort of see what resonates. I think that can also be a really powerful tool. And it goes back to that thing of like, you are a representation of your brand.
Yeah. There is something about the thought of going viral that makes me feel very anxious.
Yeah. I couldn't think of anything worse.
Spreading like wildfire, even like some kind of disease across social media platform. And it's interesting as well because, again, I I tend to live professionally within the LinkedIn world. We have had more questions as of recent about will we venture into places like Instagram as the cyber agony aunts, but something about that at the moment doesn't quite fit with who I think I am.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to be an Insta person professionally.
I don't want to be like an influencer. I get a lot of like friendly abuse from the people around me about my LinkedIn. Like particularly, it's always interesting when I speak to someone I haven't spoken to in a while and they're like, oh, I don't need to ask how you're doing because I see it all on LinkedIn, and a part of me dies every time. Yeah. But like it is a game almost, and I do feel like, you know, it's like the whole thing of if you want a village, be a villager. But it is true. Like, I think also, particularly with LinkedIn, the way that algorithms on social media work, they want you to engage with other people's content. So I think it's unrealistic to not engage, and I'm terrible for doing this. If you don't like and comment, share other people's things, it's less likely to happen on your... I don't know if that's actually true.
No,
or whether
that
I've
is
just
true. I was
made
just
up a
about to
fib.
say that. That's a huge one. Like when you post something, take a minute to comment on someone else's post and like a few things, because if LinkedIn see you as an authentic user, they're more likely to push your content. I think the thing with social platforms, and it's a bit different for blogs, because if you're hosting blogs on a website, then you own that. But on any social media that you're using, it's so important to remember that you're the product, essentially. Like it's a tough conversation. It doesn't make anyone feel good when we talk about it, but it is true. You know, on LinkedIn, if you want your profile to grow, put a job ad out, spend some money on some paid social. You'll see your following, your performance go up.
I think the other interesting thing you brought up that, again, I've kind of thought about but maybe hadn't as a recent person, is the concept of how it impacts almost digital footprints. I've spoken about it before, obviously, and for me, when I think about my digital footprint, I think about 18-year-old Rebecca and the nightmare of what that would have been.
I've seen the Facebook photos and they are golden.
But actually, my digital footprint now, if someone searches for me, again, it's about that relevancy, consistency that you touched on. And I would hope now if someone were to look me up, that what I've put out there and the effort that I've put in as obviously a member of an organisation, but as an individual, as a cyber agony aunt, fits with who I want to be, right? And fits with what I want to represent.
Yeah, so important. Moving us slightly along, because I'm conscious that we still have a lot to delve into. This is a slightly more interesting question, and I have no idea how you've sort of begun to explain this. So I'm very interested to hear, is my team is keen to explore dark socials like Reddit and Discord, but I'm feeling nervous. I don't understand what we'll get from the extra effort on these platforms, and I'm also not sure that I trust some of the content already on there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a big fan of Reddit. I'll start by saying
that surprises me.
I use it for research, actually.
Okay.
And so I'll get into that. But dark socials, they can feel a bit scary. They're very new, and they kind of... People started noticing them as a legitimate source for information or a place to market because when ChatGPT launched, it kind of emerged that it used Reddit for a lot of its information finding. Yeah. So... This, I'm not sure if I trust some of the content already on there. It's very fair, and I think it also throws some of that doubt on AI systems that use it because it's you don't know if someone's an expert. It's a completely anonymous platform in the case of Reddit, so it's difficult. But what I do find for a marketer, it's so valuable for research or insight into an audience. In my case, there's, marketing on on Meta, Instagram. There's a version of it for every platform where you have marketers giving advice on how do I improve this or do this. And for cyber and IT, r/IT questions, if you want to know what the everyday person doesn't know how to do.
Yeah.
Go and scroll through r/IT questions or IT support, and you'll see what normal people are going there to ask. And I think that's a great opportunity for companies in cyber because you can kind of find out what tools aren't out there, right? If you work on scams, for example, you can say, oh, well, people keep asking this question about scams. Maybe we can build something. So when they Google it, they come to our website instead.
Sausage.
Oh,
but it's
amazing.
True.
You've got the team and you've got the time. It's a great way. You know, mortgage and insurance people, they do like what will your rate be calculators or We Buy Any Car. You put your email in and they give you your car valuation.
Immediately when you said that, I had the jingle in my head.
Well, yeah.
We Buy Any
See,
Car.
going back to jingles now.
Yeah, but it's, carry on.
I'm just, I mean, that is true, but the reason that they do that is they get your data and then they can say, oh, your valuation, like, or this or whatever. The insurance companies do that too. Now, in cyber, that can feel untrustworthy, but getting people to your website for a useful tool has them coming back, might have them clicking on something else. If you have a couple of relevant blogs underneath that, it's a great way to get people into your website and exploring.
Very clever.
So interesting.
Reddit is, again, the starting point for that, though, for you. So as a research tool, I think it's brilliant. As a marketing tool, it is scary because it's kind of
proper weirdos out there.
There are some weirdos out there. And I think also there's this kind of thing on Reddit that it's brandless. Like if you're doing paid ads, for example, you have to always turn the comments off. I've seen it a few times. An ad comes up and I click on it. They've left the comments on and people are just being weird and terrible in the comments of an ad. And you think, well, that's not good for your brand anymore, is it?
Yeah.
Because the best thing about Reddit is the comments, is reading like what people actually think. So a good example of an ad that I saw, it was a text ad and it was some sort of connectivity or like 5G brand. And it was like it was just an interesting title. It's an interesting question, like, ever wondered why 5G pylons look like this? And then some detailed information and then a soft sell at the end. And they turned the comments off. So like tick, tick, tick there.
Yeah.
And it actually made me click on it and read, right? And I think that's the thing that Reddit can do as well. Informational, people like to hear a bit of expertise. I think you can do that organically too. But there's two ways to approach Reddit organically. I think you can transparently be the brand and talk through things and kind of use it like a blog site. You could also show up organically, have kind of like a user profile and respond to questions. I think if you're doing that, you've got to be so careful. You can't use corporate speak. You've got to really get into the language of Reddit. Talk like a normal person and actually answer the question.
Clever. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I think that's true. I think Discord's an interesting one because it's basically a chat platform. But I think it's good if if you are doing something like a podcast or you've got some sort of community and you want to give everyone a place to talk and ask questions, maybe if you have an ongoing event, Discord's a great place to have a server and kind of say you can ask questions, like talk and connect and like get to know each other. Over, say, a WhatsApp group chat that has an upper limit, Discord doesn't have that. So you could have like 2,000 people in a group and they can talk to each other and have little breakout rooms. And I think that's a good way to use it for now. I think that'll become a better way to use it once more people are using Discord in a professional sense, because at the moment it's mostly for people who game.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. I've had one client in my whole career that uses Discord, and it really threw me off because I hadn't used it since I was about like 14.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is a blast from the past. Interestingly, what you say about ChatGPT and Reddit, I was reading yesterday that Reddit actually, I think they sued OpenAI for scraping their data when ChatGPT was being trained. So, and there's a whole bunch of examples of social media companies taking AI companies particularly to court over that. But I find Reddit, the best marketing I have seen for brands is marketing that they don't even realise is happening. So, for example, I was looking... What was I looking for? I was looking for a face mask or something. And I went on to Reddit because I thought, let me just ask in like r/skincare, or let me just read what other people have said. And when people are championing, and this is the organic piece, championing your brand or your product, I'm way more likely to buy something because 3 other people have said, you know, I like this. This was my result. I think a guy had posted like pictures, before and after pictures. And I was like, oh yeah, now that seems more authentic. And I think the thing that I always find hard on social media, particularly TikTok with influencer marketing, is they're all saying the same things. They all have the same script. Whereas with something like Reddit, there's that authenticity piece. And I think that's really positive for brands. And I think that's better for product rather than service brands. But I think it's incredible, to be honest. Like,
It's a whole new area. And I think I
Absolutely.
can appreciate why people are feeling maybe twitchy or a bit nervous. I would say you don't have to jump in there. Test the water. Like you said,
Well,
almost have like
use
an
it for
anonymous
research.
profile.
Yeah,
do a
you
bit
can
of
start
digging,
out
see where
doing
you'd
that.
fit. But it's a whole new space and it's not going away. So I think we do need to get comfortable-ish over time.
Yeah, and I would say that it's changing as a platform. I think if you're talking about Reddit 5 years ago, it's a lot more it's more of a dark social almost. It's like a very dark social. People didn't really use it for that, consider it more than this kind of like, they call themselves the front page of the internet though. It's a place where people chat and talk and do talk about brands authentically, not in a review, not because they've get 50% of it, like
Yeah,
15% off if they give a 5-star review. But because they care about products so much that they hit comment and say, yeah, I really loved this. So I think it's a really, really great place for your brand to show up if your customers. And I think it does work for services, but I think you'll see that more on the kind of like professional stuff. So I'd definitely say take a look. Like have a look at whatever you do. There is a subreddit for it where there are professionals talking about how difficult it is, or what they're doing, or customers asking questions. It's a great place to get data outside of your like sales team or whatever.
Clever. So we've touched on AI quite a few times as part of this, AI being artificial intelligence for anyone that isn't quite sure. But I do have a question for you, my lovely Freya. So we all know that AI is being used more and more to generate content, and people are using it in a way that it appears to be thought leadership when it might not quite be there. Do you think that that is positive change? It's helping people have a voice and obviously they're embracing that opportunity, or is it causing more damage than good?
Well, yeah, I mean, AI marketing, it's here to stay, right? There's not much we can do about that. But I think about thought leadership, and I think, well, aren't your thoughts supposed to be leading that? And like, so that's kind of where I go, because
What do you mean?
you know, like if you're, again, I say a subject matter expert, you know, and you do know better than ChatGPT unless you just told it everything you want to say about the topic. And in that case, you're probably getting a different result. But what you're not getting is your unique voice. You're getting ChatGPT's voice. And we talked at the beginning about how well Claude did in capturing ChatGPT's voice. And I personally think I can usually tell if AI has been used and not messed around with much, because we all are very familiar with how ChatGPT writes and sounds. That's one of the reasons that in my workflow I use Claude, because it doesn't sound like that as much. But that's not a hack. I think you should write your own thought leadership pieces, to be honest, because if it's not worth you sitting and writing for an hour, it's probably not worth someone reading either. Like, we were talking all this time about content being, you know, key and it being authentic, and it doesn't feel that way if you use AI. Now, if you know what you want to say and you want to find a bit more research or some more articles to read, use ChatGPT for that. If you don't know how to say a certain thing, or you don't know how to explain a concept that you've worked with so intimately that you have no idea how someone who doesn't know how to do that would need that to be explained, ask ChatGPT for that. But copy and pasting a whole article, sticking it on your website and calling it job done is really lazy marketing in my opinion. I think AI in marketing, people have gotten it a bit wrong. People think it's coming for the creative side of things, the strategy. I think it's more coming for the analytical and programmatic elements, really. You know, what does this data show us, predict us the next 12 months? I think that's what AI could be good at. It's a pattern reader. It's not a creative thinker. And the thing that AI doesn't understand the most is nuance and tone. AI doesn't know what word you'd use for one thing or the next. You do, and your customers will know what word you use because they know you. Yeah. So they'll know if it feels authentic or not. And it won't make a huge difference to you. It's maybe the difference between them wanting to send a message asking about a new service or not. So that's kind of for you to make a decision on whether that time's worth it. But if you're just doing the blogs and putting them through ChatGPT, you're not adding much. You're not adding much value. I think it's also good to think about the environmental impact of AI, not to get on my soapbox too much, but I think it will become a more important question as they, with this new kind of deal to build AI centres in the UK, and we see some of the effects of like living near AI centres in our news in years to come. I think people will start to feel differently about it. Yeah. Right now it's in some desert in America, so people aren't thinking about it too much.
Yeah, and interesting, I guess, that this question's come up, because this was something when Freya and I first spoke, this is what we spoke about, was like how frustrating it can be to go onto a LinkedIn particularly feed and it just be AI after AI after AI. And I, like, don't get me wrong, and I say this all the time, I don't have an issue with people using AI. It's the sort of claiming that they've written something when they haven't.
Ownership of it.
Really ticks me off, because I do that. Often my LinkedIn posts are written at like 10:30 at night when I'm laying in bed, and I'll write a sentence and I'll read it back at 7 the next morning, and I'm like, I beg your finest pardon? What are you supposed to say there? And I might ask AI to, you know, like proof it for me. And someone I know who sends out marketing emails, she always writes at the bottom, written by me but proofed by AI. And I like that transparency because I don't have an issue with brands using it. But what I find really frustrating is when it's so inauthentic when we're trying to pass that off as like employee generated content. And I see it quite a lot with other consultancies where I'll read a blog or a thought leadership piece and the dead giveaways are, it's not this, it's that. Or it's like, and it's other things like that where...
It's the emojis, isn't it?
The emojis are a
like
dead
the rocket
giveaway
emoji.
Too. I know, it's ruined. Don't use it anymore.
It makes me so it makes me cringe a bit now.
Yeah.
It's difficult because I think AI has clearly opened the door for some individuals that are struggling with content and that do find the written word challenging. I think it can help. So if I, like what you said, Freya, if I relate it to what I do from a role perspective, I will use it to query data sets, say, what is this telling me? Summarise this.
Yeah.
I will also use it to say, what is this person in this other language actually talking about? And how does that relate to this, that and the other? So it's useful in that respect. But I can also see how it has taken away the authenticity of people's actual thoughts and their creativity. And we're seeing that impact lots and lots of different industries, whether we're talking about recordings and voiceover work, being in a studio right now. We know that it's impacting that industry.
Yeah, massively.
I saw yesterday, I can't remember what they've called themselves, but the BBC, the Financial Times, and a series of other journalist groups have come together and formed sort of like an AI concern group because it's impacting journalism and the way people are creating or writing. So you can see how it helps, but you can also see how it's causing damage.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be eye-opening over the next few years to see how AI plays its part.
Yeah, and I think, again, I'm not completely anti-AI. I think your email example is great. I think it's important to, use it in the middle when you need that help to say something in the right way. My favourite trick, if I'm struggling with a word or a sentence, is to put it in and ask AI to write it 10 or 20 different ways.
Yeah.
Because then you really get the breadth of all the different options, and then you can look through that and go, oh, that sounds like me, or that one's most like what I'm trying to say.
And you can train models, and if you're using it consistency and you've trained it to support your tone of voice. I think if you think about organisations, you can see how that would help. But like you said, there's something to be said for using your own thoughts, your own brain power. You can use AI to refine, but give it a shot first before you jump straight on that.
And give it a gloss at the end. I think this is the thing. Think about it this way: in a world where everyone's using AI to generate their content, you're going to stand out if it sounds like you, not ChatGPT.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we had this conversation. I'm sure you were there, Rebecca. I definitely hadn't had that many margaritas at that point, but we met a really interesting guy who has written a really fascinating book around cybersecurity and how to measure risk. And he had asked us, because we said that we had written a book, he'd asked us, if we'd used AI throughout that creative process. We were just talking about it. And I said to him, my take on AI, and there's a reason why we have a real human being editor, is that it can't do that nuance. It can't do that tone. It also really cannot capture our voices.
Yeah.
And I think when you've worked really hard, as most brands have done, to get that mutually agreed tone or way of saying things, once you start then trying to put that into AI, it can sort of in the words it's using, it can do that and it can replicate that. But it really can't in how it makes you feel as a reader. Like, I often find if I'm reading AI generated content, I don't really feel anything.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm reading something someone has written, like mistakes and all, I think that lands way better with people.
Feels more real, right?
Yeah.
Well, it is more real.
Yeah,
You can feel the person that's written it behind it and all their little quirks of voice if we go all the way back to the start.
Yeah.
That's what's there.
Definitely. Well, I guess, with that in mind, the last question I wanted to ask was, for people who find it hard to come up with content and maybe don't want to look silly, although I hate that anyone feels that way.
I know.
Have you got any recommendations on where they can start and what platforms they could use in terms of generating content?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to come up with content. I struggle with that every day. I even find it hard. Some clients you think, God, don't know what to talk about for your product or service or something. But I think I'd go back to a few points I've mentioned. Research on Reddit is great. Run a few different searches. run the Google search of the thing that you're thinking about writing and just put Reddit at the end even and see what gets thrown out if you've got an idea. If you don't have an idea, talk to your sales teams. Ask them the questions that they get asked every day. If you've got a support team, ask them too. At the end of the day, you could be saving them a job. If there's a blog, they can then tell people to go and read if it's clearly written. So that's a really good one at every point of the process. If you're talking about a company brand, ask your BD teams, your sales teams, your support teams, what questions do they get asked? What do they think are your customers' biggest struggles? And write as much content as possible on that. Another avenue is kind of shaping your presence and your expertise by thinking, what do I talk to people about? I think a great one is to think about what interesting conversations you have with your colleagues. I think that's a great place.
Well, I don't think "What are you having for tea" is a good example of that,
Maybe
and I
not.
love that one.
But yeah, if you're working on an issue, I think client issues, if you can anonymise in the right way, are great as well. A great trove of content. I also think that, you know, the personal story is the hardest one to tell. It's the one that feels like, oh, I'm talking about myself on LinkedIn again, and it's not good. But if there's a struggle that you know you've gone through, or you know that other people go through too, and you feel comfortable sharing it, doesn't have to be an overly long post, but, you know, talking about
relatability.
relatability. LinkedIn is becoming more and more casual every day. It's becoming more and more appropriate to put it there if you want to. But yeah, I think, you know, see what others do.
Yeah.
I think stay open to things, and if you like things, have a place you keep your ideas. And then once you've got them, you can ask ChatGPT for recommendations on where to read further. You can search it on Reddit. You can go and read some news articles. I think that's also another great one. If you read the news in your sector and you find something interesting, even if you need something to post, say, oh, I read this article and I found it really interesting because of this, or this is what it made me think of. Read it and tell me what you think. It's a great way to start a conversation.
I love that. I do that quite a lot at the moment.
Yeah, I saw you do that this morning, actually.
I'm trying to, it's that balance of, I want to have my own brand, but I also want to show that I'm on the pulse. If I relate it to cybersecurity, I'm seeing the news and I have thoughts about it.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to do that more of reading from an open source perspective. What's happened in the last 24 hours? What do I think about it? And try and write something that sounds like I might know.
Yeah, I think the piece I found quite tricky, particularly in my role, because I work across quite a lot of sectors and I've sort of, for a lot of my career, aligned myself in critical infrastructure, is you don't necessarily realise what other people associate to you and your voice and brand. And I can remember someone saying to me that they'd seen my content on LinkedIn and they quite liked, you know, I was always posting about developments in critical infrastructure, developments in legislation, developments in attacks that are happening. And I found that really interesting because that isn't the content that performs particularly well on my, you know, if I post a selfie, it's going to do way better than if I'm talking about, a power station in Poland being hacked. Like, that's just how the algorithm works. But you don't, like, I think the thing with brand is it's not tangible. It is in the sense of analytics, and LinkedIn does insights and things like that. But on that personal level of, you don't realise necessarily that you might be someone's go-to person on that topic. And so I think often we put so much weight onto metrics. The hardest thing actually can be just to put a piece of content out. Yeah. Like, just put it out there. You don't know who's going to see that. Someone might not like it. I'm terrible at liking things, but they've still seen it, and, you know, they still might associate you or your company with that concept.
Well, absolutely. We said before that going viral shouldn't be the goal. Being relevant should be. And I think, you know, I had it with colleagues in my last role. Many, like, people would post a photo of themselves and get lots of likes because that's what makes people click the like button. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's what's stuck in someone's mind, made them apply or get in contact or whatever. So I think that's so true. And I think also it's the type of content you're posting about. Decoding something complicated for industry experts is such a valuable thing. I mean, that podcast that I mentioned, House of Performance, I loved their stuff because it decoded paid media in a way that was well balanced. It was technical, but on the side of explainable, I suppose is how I'd say it. So yeah, and I think the way to find what that balance is for you is to talk to people in your industry. and kind of try and find out what people come to you for.
Yeah.
God, on that bombshell. What an episode, team.
I feel like this is going to make you really cringe. Inspired.
Oh,
like
wow.
there are so many things where I'm like, I've never thought about that before. I've never considered that before. And so, yeah, thank you. I mean, we've got a book coming out, so this is helpful for us in terms of that marketing plan.
I suppose, Freya, I'll just ask if anyone wants to catch up with you, chat with you, ask for some support.
Or follow what you're posting.
Yeah, where can they engage with you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn under Freya Miller. I think that's probably the best place. I don't really have a website or anything. So, yeah, just
That's
find me
okay.
and follow me on LinkedIn. We can connect.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well done, you. So, I suppose to summarise, I'm going to do my little Jerry Springer moment if you're from that era. So we understand socials can be scary, especially when you're trying to build your own brand and your own voice, or maybe even represent your organisation. But the best thing we can recommend above all is to just be authentic to your own story, your own narrative, your own voice. Don't be too cheeky with that AI button. You can't go wrong if you just are your beautiful self.
Could not agree more. So to end, if you have any other questions relating to any topic we've covered in this podcast, pop them through to cyberagonyarts@gmail.com and we will do our best to reply there, or maybe even cover in a future podcast. Thank you, Freya, for joining us.
Thank you both. It was wonderful.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please share it with others or post about it on social media using the hashtag CyberAgonyAunt.
As always, a huge thank you to our guests, to Matinee Multilingual, and to you, our listeners. Keep smiling, keep shining, and we'll see you next time on the Cyber Agony Aunts podcast.